So good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today for our coffee talk on managing for stiltgrass in a changing environment. We will have time for discussion after this presentation. In fact, that'll kind of be the bulk of the event today. But until then, please just mute yourself to avoid any incidents. My name is Emily Postorero, and I am a member of the Northeast RISCC leadership team. So I'll start with a brief overview of what the risk is and what we do. So our mission is to reduce the compounding effects of invasive species and climate change, as our name implies. And we do that through a number of ways, including synthesizing relevant science, sharing managers' needs and knowledge, building stronger scientist-manager communities, and conducting priority research. And so today it's going to be kind of focused on those two middle points. So we've brought together hopefully a lot of land managers, practitioners today to foster discussion. So today's coffee talk kind of falls under the framework that we always are working under, which is called translational invasion ecology. So this is the approach that we take that emphasizes connection and collaboration among researchers, stakeholders, and decision makers in order to develop and implement ecological research. So we do this in a lot of different ways. The coffee talks being one of, like this one being one of them. We also send out biweekly research summaries, so that's just summarizing the research that's out there. We synthesize science in our management challenge documents, which are meant to be usable for land managers and practitioners. We conduct our own research, and we also try to provide avenues of communication like this one. But we also have our annual symposium. We run workshops. We conduct surveys. Just generally trying to foster conversation and collaboration. And I guess I forgot to click through all these little animations, but there's, the kind of the examples of what we do. This is our leadership team that makes it all happen. We are always growing. We always welcome more people. So if you're interested in working with us more closely and actually, creating these products and coordinating these events, please reach out at any time. All of those things that I mentioned, including usually recordings of past events, are available on our website. So it's riscnetwork.org/northeast. Someone will put that in the chat, so that'll be easier for you to take a look at. I also encourage you to join our listservs. You can get the research summaries, management challenges, and news of events like this one straight to your inbox after you sign up. So without further ado, I will now introduce my colleague Shikha Singh, who is a coordinator and biologist at the JLW CISMA, that's the Cooperative Invasive Species Management Area in Michigan.
All right.
Shikha, I'm not sure if you're able to share your screen. I paused mine, but I don't know if I need to
Okay.
stop it. You got it?
All right. I need you to
Stop the share?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. No. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Oh,
There you go.
okay, perfect.
All right. So, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to do this talk because it's something a little bit different than, what we're typically used to. Usually we just, talk about here's a species and, an hour about, what the species looks like, etc. But I'm hoping this will be actually useful, to some of the practitioners of stiltgrass out there. So without delay, I will start. Here's a quick roadmap to what we're going to be talking about in this next 10 minutes. I'll introduce who we are, talk about some climate change, like what some of the main impacts are, and then continue on with a brief, identification of what stiltgrass looks like for those of you who are not aware of it, and then some of the management efforts and challenges that we are facing. So we are a cooperative invasive species management area. There is a group of us that covers every county in Michigan, and some of us cover 3, some of us do 7, it kind of varies. So we're down here in this purple. So I cover Jackson, Lenawee, Washtenaw, and these CISMAs, operate independently of each other, and we all do different things. So for us, outreach is a big thing for us. We do outreach and engagement. We do presentations. We do a lot of survey and management. So we go out in the field as well. We do consulting, site visits, and whatever. So we do a little bit of everything. Our area is, really pretty. We've got a variety of natural areas, recreational areas, like a lot of inland lakes. We've got, large campuses, so a, diverse population. So really a lot of things happening in all 3 areas. We also have a variety of unique species. We do have like the Mitchell satyr butterfly in our area, and that's, a really critically endangered butterfly, and it's actually in one of our project areas for Stiltgrass. And, in addition, we do have the Massasauga rattlesnake. This is actually a melanistic form, so this is really cool because you don't really see a lot of the Massasaugas that are the black coloring. So it's really kind of cool to see. So I wanted to kind of pull up a little, graphic from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences that kind of mentions, like, what some of the common and identified impacts that climate change poses to both the environment and to human health. And some of the things that I have circled here, it's increased global temperature, extreme weather events and disasters, precipitation. Extreme heat is also something of interest, and some of these things are all related. So when you have some of this happening, it's going to have ramifications all around. So we have seen some of these already, like some events, and it has hindered some of our management practices. So that's kind of why we're out here today. If you look at this temperature change, graphic, this is really big in 2019, where we had a professor, and I think he's in Reading, and he created this graphic that was able to highlight the temperature change in various places over time. And as you can see, this is Michigan, and we're seeing a lot more warmer red stripes. So as it, as time, this is like the deviation above the median. So, and this is like North America down here. So yeah, things are changing. At least they appear to be changing from this. So on to the main feature of this talk, and that is Japanese stiltgrass. So a quick review is that Japanese stiltgrass can reach up to 2 to 4 feet in height. It's a nice grassy, ornamental species. People, used to like having it, but it's also brought in from packaging. So people used to pack porcelain dishes or items and then ship them to the United States. And so this first started appearing in the United States in like the early 1900s in about the Tennessee area, and has gradually, if you look at those ed maps, it just kind of, carpet of green as it's going towards the Northeast. These flowers appear in late summer, and this plant is really interesting because it's shade and full sun tolerant. It's an easygoing plant. It likes everything and can grow anywhere where people allow it to grow, which is a challenge in itself. It has a 3 to 8 centimeter lance-shaped leaf. So if you look at these blades over here, it's more of a lance shape instead of a tapered, skinny grass. Is more common here. It reproduces mainly by seeds. So each plant can have about 100 to 1,000 seeds. And those seeds are viable for about 5 years in soil. And they're easily spread, a big rain event. If there's a lot of seeds at the surface, it'll kind of wash downstream. They can take over very easily, especially when you have like a bare, sparse patch of nothing impeding it, shading it out. It'll grow very successful. And then down here, I apologize for the pictures are a little bit small, but you can kind of see some of the seeding starting to occur. A little baby plant that we have here. And the next picture, it's a little hard to see, so I do apologize, but kind of where it gets its name from, the stiltgrass, you can kind of see, this kind of like this root kind of structure, and then the stems are kind of growing off, and it's kind of stilted, like popping out stilted. And the root structure is very horizontal in nature. You can kind of see that here. There are several management options that we have used in the area. Chemical, herbicide application is a common one. And depending on how big the infestation is, if it's like a big area, then we use that one. We've also utilized physical methods as well, commonly hand pulling, mowing, and a little bit of torching. And so, a lot of our partners have done some of the torching. So I have not done that myself, but it is an option, especially for some spot treatments. And then one thing to kind of note with the mowing, we suggest and we advocate that mowing kind of occur before the plant has gone to seed, because as you know, after the stiltgrass goes to seed, it's going to be being scattered everywhere. It's going to contaminate the equipment. So if you use that equipment somewhere else, there needs to be some sort of decontamination. And unfortunately, the landscaping of companies that go from place to place, we've seen them spread this species, especially in the more urban areas. So I urge extreme caution when you're using mowing. It's helpful in some aspects to knock it down, but once it goes to seed, it can be very difficult to prevent it spreading via contamination. So I just did a very superficial overview of stiltgrass. If you wanted more information, more in depth, there's a really cool talk that was done previously, I believe in 2019, by Ms. Angela Siros Patel from the Nature Conservancy and Dr. Luke Flory from University of Florida. That presentation, if you Google this title, Preparing for Japanese Stiltgrass, on YouTube, it's available. And I believe either Emily or Eva is going to put the link in the chat so you can have access to that. It's a really cool 45-minute talk that goes more in depth into the life history and the movement of this species as well. So please check that out. So now let's kind of bring it down to our project area, and so kind of like what we're dealing with. So we have seen stiltgrass appear in a variety of locations, wooded, beautiful forested areas to private, that are private and county owned, on 2 tracks. We've seen it at private residences, and as I mentioned before, potential, shared landscapers. And then we're seeing it in local and county parks as well. And the potential for wildlife to be spreading it as deer bed down, the seeds stick to its fur, its skin, that can cause the spread to occur. So one of the first places that I would like to talk about is at Watkins Lake State Park and County Preserve. This is a unique parcel of land that was county and state purchased in 2016, or at least the purchase was finalized back then. It had taken a long time for it to get to that position. And it is a former farming land area. People used to farm on it. And it's really exciting to be that it's part of the Underground Railway Network system. And there's a story associated with it, some documentation. So please Google that if you're interested in the historical aspect of the Underground Railway. I also want to take this moment to thank one of our really important collaborators, Allison Kruger. She's from the Washtenaw County Parks and Rec Commission. Without her, none of this could have happened at Watkins Lake State Park, and her crew. They're absolutely fabulous. So shout out to that group over there. And in addition to, we've been working on the county side, and we've been partnering with the state to kind of monitor the other areas. It's a really nice waterfowl refuge, so a lot of birders come here. There's a lot of good songbirds. If this is like a nice little prairie area, absolutely gorgeous. And so I have some pictures to give you a flavor of how diverse this landscape is. And, beautiful streams. This is more, if you go to the back, it's more of the Mitchell Sater habitats. But yeah, a lot of this was like a former farming area. And we have a lot of like grassy areas. And essentially, we've got a lot of spaces for stiltgrass to occur. And so, where we have found stiltgrass in this landscape is in the forested area. And there's some open, areas in the forested area as well. But what happened is that we had someone report stiltgrass, and I think that they were foraging in the area. And, they had seen some stiltgrass, especially along the two track. So there used to be a lot of two tracks and like automotive vehicles kind of going up and down that area. And so we confirmed stiltgrass in 2020. And then the first treatment began in 2021, and it's ongoing. The challenge that occurred as we were treating, and we saw some good success. We saw a lot of really good progress in how we manage stiltgrass here. But then we had some intense storms and a lot of trees went down, and it did open up some new canopy. And as I said, that stiltgrass, it likes shade and open sunlight. So it can thrive in any condition. But obviously, when it, gets full unimpeded sunlight, it's going to create even more favorable conditions. And so just things to point out in this picture. Here's one of the spots. This is like the dead zone. And all of this used to be stiltgrass. And we saw such remarkable progress in this patch. Very little had come back. And, surveying for this is kind of interesting because this is like kind of what we're seeing on each side of these areas. It's heavy and it's forested, and so this is one of the two tracks, and you can kind of see some stiltgrass. So it's almost like finding a needle in a haystack in this area. And the next area is a private property. And again, there's a lot of natural areas and woods, but there is a lot of lawn area. We did some hand pulling prior to 2018. So the treatment occurred just before I took my position. And again, hand pulling, mowing to keep it in check. And again, we had that same year, we had a lot of storms and it knocked down a lot of trees, which actually blocked off some mowing access. So some of that mowing was actually keeping things in check. And then once that tree went down, we had no funding to remove the tree. And what happened was what was being mowed, nicely, and then there's no stiltgrass in that area. But after the trees went down and the mowing stopped because they couldn't get in there, we came in and like the next year we saw thick thatches of stiltgrass. And so unfortunately, it looked like this before the trees went down. But again, so these are some of the challenges that we had faced at this property. So what are some of the challenges? Again, newly open canopies. So those areas, we did see some increased growth in those areas, whereas it may have been only like, a few plants that we had seen. All of a sudden, it was really, really had increased in volume. So the physical barriers, no access, and some of these areas are very large, so it's hard for us to kind of go in with a small lawnmower that you can kind of throw over a log. So we're talking large areas that really requires a riding mower for efficient management. Some of the other things that we experienced this year, and that was warmer days. So we had a lot more hot days, warmer days. And if you look at our demographics for volunteers, we have that's kind of skewed. We do have some undergrad volunteers that are helpful, but we also have a lot more of our consistent volunteers tend to be older. And so when you do have a lot of, warmer days, it can be harder to get volunteers because nobody wants to volunteer to get sick or heat stroke because it's so warm. And even when people do come out, sometimes our work days are extremely shortened or they're canceled altogether. So that has definitely put a dent in our ability to do some hand pulling and management. This year, we saw a lot more focus on air quality. So we had a lot of, from the forest fires, but that's something to kind of think about when, as we talk about climate change, things that are changing. The air quality is something of concern, and we've already had to cancel field days because of that. And we had a hard time trying to reschedule those days because, for a lot of us, we already have a bunch of set projects and we need to get them done in this timeline because we have other things that we need to address. And so it's hard to kind of reschedule. And especially when you have to incorporate like 2 or 3 or 4 other people's schedule. Staffing has also been an issue for us as well. So the quality of some of the people that we're able to get and the duration of how long they're able to help us was something to kind of consider. And so next year we're going to have to, consider things like budget changes, our timeline, the breakout, how to address the breakout population. So what I mean by, the budget changes and timeline, I mean that we're maybe, it would have been like, okay, a 5-year expectation to, eradicate stiltgrass from this area. And, now it's like, well, if things are changing, we may have to adjust, how much we survey, where we survey. And if we do have, trees, getting downed, we're going to have to maybe deviate some of our staff time that who would have gone to surveying and treatment stiltgrass. Well, maybe now they have to deal with other things that have occurred, clearing paths, clearing trails, etc. So when we have these different barriers, that does adjust what it adjusts the extra burden of what we need to do at some of these site locations. And then something that a lot of people don't talk about, it's like that emotional aspect, some of the emotional challenges of managing invasive species. It can be quite daunting, especially when it seems like it's a never ending situation. So am I the only one managing our own expectations? So I think we need to rethink what success might look like. And again, we have other species coming in that we need to address. So generally, I already kind of talked about it. What you all may have to address is like, warmer days, low income versus communities of color. They may have less money or the ability to adapt to changing conditions. So that's something to kind of consider. And preparedness, there's a lot of people who are now on board that think global warming, climate change is occurring. But even as of 2021, only 72% thought so. So who are your decision makers? Are they ready? Are they prioritizing climate change or not? And if they're not, some areas may have a gap in terms of resources and the readiness to deal with this. And finally, you can't really rely on traditional management timelines. Things are changing, things are moving. So that's something to consider. Grant providers may also need to adapt their expectations of grantees and what their ability to do and the funding that they need to accomplish this. So accounting for some uncertainty. So, we have a lot of, challenges and we don't want to be caught off guard. So you may have a situation where it's like, okay, we think we can handle it. It looks pretty good, but the climate change throws a curveball at you. And we want you to be ready. And the purpose of this presentation is to highlight some of the challenges so that you are prepared and that you won't be caught off guard in the several years ahead. So with that, if I have any questions, if we have time.
Yeah, I think we have a few minutes. Thank you so much, Shikha. That was a great presentation. If you do have questions, feel free to do whatever is comfortable. You can put them in the chat, or you can just come off mute and ask your question directly. That's fine too. But we'll allow for a few minutes before we kind of get into our breakout groups.
Right. Hearing silence.
Yeah, I'm kind of just taking a quick look just to see if anyone's hands are up or anything like that. But maybe I will actually, you know what? While I wait for questions, I'm gonna throw my screen back up.
Okay, I'll stop sharing
Um,
mine.
just have one last slide to share with you. So like I said, if you do have a question, you can put it in the chat, no problem. Go ahead. But while we wait for anyone to do that, just wanted to let you know about other upcoming events. We'll try and get links to the signups for these in the chat. But we do have another coffee talk actually just taking place next week. So this is on our new management challenge about the impacts of climate change on biocontrol agents. So that promises to be pretty interesting. So you can sign up for that. And then we do have our annual symposium coming up. This is a free online symposium. It'll actually be structured kind of similarly to what we're doing now, where it's like a meeting style. So we hope it'll be kind of a good opportunity for networking and collaborating. But yeah, we have a 2-day lineup full of speakers, so we encourage you to sign up for that and take part. I do see a few things in the chat here. I think those are just okay. So we have the links, but we also do have a question. So I guess Shika, I'll pitch this to you. Can you
Yeah.
say more about if the stiltgrass comes back once you pull it, especially since the seeds last for 5 years?
Yeah, so we have found that it does come back. So we do have to keep going back to kind of deplete. It's more of like we need to deplete the seed bank. So yeah, we are coming back consistently to do this, and we actually are seeing some good improvement and efforts from the hand pulling.
Okay. Well, I think that I'm going to come on video here so you can actually see me. I think that is all of the questions. Maybe catch Shika at the end if you thought of something. Just kidding. What herbicides have you used?
We have found good success with glyphosate. So it's a very weak, 0.5% is what we're using. Yeah. So thank you for our group for a good discussion. So for the kind of the first question, for private organizations, like they felt like they did have the capacity to increase survey efforts, but for those that worked on, larger areas, they did not have the capacity, like they're already kind of tapped. And so, we did have a robust volunteer base, but it's kind of has fizzled recently. Um, and then we kind of talked about biosecurity a little bit, having that moving back and forth between areas and that kind of also making sure that we're, cleaning our stuff before we go into the next area. And as far as like barriers, it's not just that the growing season is extended. It's also, like the other crews that are like managing the storm impacts and like the down power lines, et cetera, and then having to control under these areas. Um, it's also coordination between different agencies is kind of a barrier. Interest is there, but just couldn't get the permissions and stuff together. We talked about how bureaucracy is something that can be changed. So kind of working to kind of minimize that. Some of the tools include maybe decision makers having a background in what they're managing, or having a mind to understand how things work in the natural field. Um, tracing pathways, it's kind of like prevention. So tracing pathways to prevent new things from coming in, enforcing the laws, having some coordinated approaches to act strategically, maybe having some funding that's unencumbered. So when new things do come up, we can kind of act on that. More workers on the ground. And then we just kind of started on the question 5, but just more, invasive species council, natural areas associations, and, people that work on groups like mine. So yeah, that's kind of what we had. So hopefully I got everything or captured stuff quickly.
Thanks, Shika. I can go with my group. We didn't fully go through the questions we had just because there was some discussion on what people's own experiences were. And kind of some main takeaways from us were that timing is very important in terms of being able to treat before stiltgrass goes to seed. But then also not just for stiltgrass, but for other invasives. We were talking about some using volunteers and education efforts to help as a preventative way. And just resources that can be helpful for that are on NASMA. The North American Invasive Species Management Association does have some good educational signage that you can put on trail sides and just help with that. Boot brush stations can also be super helpful and easy.
Fine.
I can kind of summarize very quickly for my group as well. We did kind of run through all of them. One individual had like started an inventory process, but definitely could have used another grant to kind of keep that going. It's probably going to take, maybe like a multi-year kind of project. Yeah, heard some stuff about kind of relying on volunteers and on homeowners with regards to like dealing with stiltgrass that's starting to emerge. In terms of like other barriers, we heard about phenological changes resulting in reduced treatment window. So that's something people might have to be aware of. Also needing to like mow a property, and then that kind of breaks it up, opens up space. Also, we already heard, I think a couple people mentioned about like disturbance events, basically. Shikha, you had mentioned it, and I think someone from your group as well. But yeah, falling trees kind of causing a disturbance and then creating that space where invasive species go in and colonize. So probably something that's going to keep happening with climate change. I think it was Matt who mentioned that having kind of like a list or knowing what native plantings post-treatment would be a helpful tool to deal with that kind of stuff. Also asked about if there are any studies about fire being effective. So if anyone knows of anything, I don't know if we had anything on like our RISC website, but I don't know if anyone has any resources they want to put in the chat there, please do so. And then in terms of what people were using as resources, Katie, who's a fellow Canadian, did mention using the Invasive Species Center where I work as a resource. Seems to be a bit of a running theme where people don't necessarily have like staff trained on invasive species, so they are looking to external resources like a local land trust or CISMA to their staff. I think there was, I thought I saw a question in the chat. Anybody try spraying simazine mixed with glyphosate to prevent the seed from germinating? Anyone tried that?
I've not done that.
Okay. Any other questions, I guess, or even just final comments if anyone wants to jump in before we kind of wrap up?
I can just say briefly that my group covered a lot of the same things that the other groups covered.
Forgot about the last group, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But I think the one thing that we talked about that maybe hasn't yet been mentioned is just the general approach to clean equipment standards. So like that's important for stiltgrass, but lots of invasive species. So anytime when we're moving, equipment or earth materials, soils, mulches, that sort of thing. Thinking about making sure that whoever the providers are following best practices.
Well, thank you everyone for participating here. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to our poll just so that you can let us know whether this event was useful, what you would have liked to see more of, and what you'd like future programming to look like. I'll also send that out in an email if you don't get the chance. And if you have anything else that you'd like to share with us related to this topic or others, also please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find our contact info on the RISC website. I'll also drop that in the chat. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a great opportunity to talk to people from, actually on the ground managing, what looks good on paper and what looks good on the budgeting, Excel sheet, it always looks different, when you're actually dealing with like that, how to parse out that money and scheduling.
Yeah. And thanks for your presentation, Shikha. It was really great. And hope everyone got something out of the presentation and discussion and resources shared today. So thank you all for sticking around for the full hour with us.